This is Jacob Bembry with Greene Publishing, and I'm here today with Sheriff Ben Stewart. Ben, how many years have you been in law enforcement?
Well, about 32 now.
32 years. And how did you start off in law enforcement?
Well, I first started off working at the jail as a correction officer whenever I was going to junior college here, and that was in 1979.
Wow. Was that after you were out of the Marines? Or?
That was after the active duty part. I was on the reserve at that point, and
Okay.
was able to work it out that way.
Well, you mentioned you were in the reserves. How many years did you spend in the Marines and the reserves?
Well, 6 years total.
Okay. Have you ever had any thoughts about going back and getting your military retirement?
No, because of the law enforcement and the conflict with the
Right.
weekends and everything, it's just very difficult.
Right.
We don't get too many weekends off, so that's kind of annihilated that part of that.
Well, I know you've done a lot of different things in law enforcement. You've been, you started out as a correctional officer. You worked as a dispatcher. You were a pilot, weren't you? And you worked for FDLE, or no, for the state attorney's office.
Right.
And now, when you flew and all, were there like I know that it's not as common for do flyovers now because of hydroponic marijuana or whatever. And
that's pretty much done away with it. Back in the early 80s, well, 83, there was a big domestic marijuana problem in the county. There were people growing marijuana a lot all over the woods.
Right.
We first started flying for it with the state attorney's office, and we used to run a plane back then. That was in 1983. Well, when the Valverde case happened, and we were able to actually get their airplane, and about $1 million netted in money out of that case. From all that, we were able to purchase our own airplane in 1984.
Right.
So that was when Joe Peavy was sheriff, and after that case, I started flying the plane as part of the sheriff's office.
You mentioned that y'all had seized the Valverde plane.
We did. We actually seized a Super King Air, which was a big twin engine.
Right.
And then after we were able to seize it, we sold it to the governor's office. And actually, the governor's office used it up until just recently, I believe. They flew the governor around, and it was a seized drug airplane for years and years. We sold it to them for like $600,000.
Wow. That's just amazing. Now, I noticed that there are quite a few money seizures. You have a drug interdiction team on the interstate.
We do. Matter of fact, just this last seizure, we made a seizure of $32,000 a couple of weeks ago. That put us right at $2 million in currency that we've seized since January of 2009.
Wow. And how much of that money have y'all been able to keep?
We get about 70, sometimes as much as 80% of that, depending on the cases. But about 99% of the cases are not. They're not tried. Most of the people claim no knowledge of any drugs or any money that's found in these drug courier vehicles.
Right. Now, you also seize the vehicles, don't you?
If it's a situation where it's owned by the person that's in the vehicle, we'll seize it. Sometimes they're rental vehicles, which we don't try to seize those, although there are laws that will allow us to, if a particular vehicle has been stopped more than once, a rented vehicle that is, we can then pursue seizure on that.
Right. Now, what are some of the programs you've started? I know that you went back to a drug task force.
We did.
And are there any other programs you've begun since?
We did. Well, that was the first and the biggest. We started that my first day in office because I'm convinced that every crime that we deal with, in one way or another, is associated with somebody using drugs somewhere.
Okay.
Even our burglaries. Most people don't break into a house because they want to get something to eat. They want money so they can buy drugs, or they want. So we just felt like if we spearheaded the drug problem in Madison County, it would help us with all other areas, and it really has. So the drug task force was first, and part of the drug task force was getting our K9 unit started again. We now have 4 full-time K9 units, which is a big part of the war on drugs. We've started as far as we don't have our own airplane anymore, our airplane we sold, the previous sheriff sold it back in 2002, but we incorporate the state agencies to come over and try to fly for us for that. Those are some of the main programs that I feel like has been a benefit to the sheriff's office.
Now, you also, back during the last flood, you also saw a need for a boat, didn't you?
We sure did, because when that happened, the sheriff's office didn't own a boat, and we only had one four-wheel drive vehicle. And of course, in that situation, we needed many four-wheel drives, and we needed a lot of boats. And since that time, through the use of grant money and also seized drug money, we've been able to purchase a nice boat that we can use for our dive team, which was one of the things we got started back. And we patrol Cherry Lake on the weekends, which has gotten to be a very nuisance area as far as the number of people and the number of boats and situations where you have people drinking or riding the jet skis and being crazy.
Right.
So the boat program has been one of the programs that we started back, and it's been a very good asset. We've used it several times and continue to use it. And we've been able to get a lot of four-wheel drives now. I've got all of the sergeants on the shift drive four-wheel drive pickups, and with Madison County being a rural county with all the dirt roads, the four-wheel drive pickups, the Tahoes that we use are lasting so much longer than the Crown Vics did. The vehicle program that we're going to is just one of the best things I think we've been able to do to save money.
Yeah. Well, how do you you mentioned the sergeants? I know each shift has a different sergeant. Like Randy Janch is the sergeant of one shift. How are your shifts set up?
Well, they're actually on 12-hour shifts. The patrol division, of course, all the uniform guys, we have 4 shifts, and they're 12-hour shifts. They work, of course, 12 hours at a time, and then the other shift comes in and works the night shift, and that actually rotates every 2 months. Okay. Each shift has a sergeant out. Each shift consists of 4 men total. So we've got 4 shifts, 4 squads of 4 men, which we also have a separate investigative squad for criminal activity. We also have, which is separate than the drug task force, which is made up of investigators also. The K-9 units are kind of interspersed between the squad, the uniform deputies, and also the drug task force. But it works really smooth, and actually our jail works the same way with 12-hour shifts, and also our communications.
Okay. Now, how many people do y'all have working in the jail, like the correctional officers?
We've got 28 correctional officers, and that includes the shift guys and about 5 administrative people that handle the transports, the courts, going and getting the food and things like that.
Now, I know that back when Prentice Cherry worked for the sheriff's office, now he would haul, well, I'm trying to put this delicately, but I mean, when somebody had died or something, he was responsible for carrying them to the coroner's office. Does the sheriff's office still handle that? Or?
No, several years ago, actually before I became sheriff, that got to be a situation that got to be very complicated with the day's laws and things, and so the county of Madison contracted with a group out of Lake City called ICS, and so we have a contract with them to come and pick up anybody that has to go for an autopsy, and that's usually the only case if it's a unintended death that's deemed to be a natural death and no foul play. Then the funeral homes can come directly to the scene, and they do that as well. And now the other part that's changed is there used to be a medical examiner's office that we had to go to in Jacksonville. Now it's actually out of Tallahassee.
Are there any cases that the sheriff's office has worked on, or maybe even worked on before you were sheriff, that y'all are trying to close now?
Well, of course, there's a lot of different cases as far as property crimes and things that seem to go on forever. Our clearance rate is up into the 40 percentile, which is about 30% above what it was about 3 years ago. But I guess one of the major cases that we're still trying to close is a homicide that happened right after I took over, January, about the 15th, I believe, right in that range of 2009.
Was that the one over around Pettit Springs?
It was. Okay. And we feel comfortable, we know who did it, but with laws and the rules of evidence, we haven't been able to get the court to accept what we've got on our suspect. So hopefully, sooner or later, some of the witnesses that were involved with that or witnesses that may have been involved or seen things will come forward to give us just enough that the state will take the case.
And, well, I'm going to ask you a little bit. I know that you mentioned your daughter's gone off to college now.
Oh, yeah.
Your wife, I think, works at a local dentist office. And
she does.
I mean, it's, tell me about your other family. I mean, any dogs, cats?
Oh, Lord, yeah. Unfortunately, we've got several dogs, and we live out near Pinetta in the country, and it's good to have dogs around. We've got horses, of course, that belong to my daughter. She's the horse rider. It's just, I love Madison County, the rural aspect of Madison County. I think that's what draws people here and keeps people here. I know that we've faced some difficult times as far as the economy and everything, but Madison is still a good place to live. We just want to keep it that way.
Yes, sir. I know that you're a man of faith and that you attend Landmark Baptist Church, and you're also with the Gideon, right?
I am.
Tell us a little bit about your work with the Gideon.
Well, I started that in 1991. That's one of the things that I just felt encouraged to do. I received my first Gideon Bible that I can remember when I was at Paris Island, South Carolina, in Marine Corps boot camp, and it was very significant to me to be able to receive a Bible from the Gideons at a place like that. And that I still have that Bible today. It's very dear to me, very important. And because of that, I really wanted to be part of the Gideons, but they don't necessarily accept you into the Gideons until you're a little bit older, a little more mature, and then well established in your church. And so in 1991, I was able to accomplish that, and that's the only organization I belong to besides things with the Sheriff's Association. Okay. It's just very important to me. We give out Bibles. We place Bibles. We let the Bible do the work. It's not associated with any denomination. It's just the Word of God, in our opinion, and that's what the purpose of that is.
Is there anything that you would like to tell people about anything that people need to be on the alert for, or that people need to be aware of, and all, especially with our senior citizens?
Yeah, I think the most prominent thing right now is the scams and the fraud things that are going on. Because I don't know if it's because of the climate of the economy or what, but it seems that the fraud cases have just risen to an astronomical amount right now. We're getting daily calls on people that are either getting phone calls, mail, or emails from people trying to defraud them, trying to cheat them out of money. And there's tons of different schemes. They're trying to do anything they can to steal, mainly to steal the identity of any senior citizen, any citizen that they can get it from. That's our number one case that I feel like that we're dealing right now. Other than that, property crimes are up a little bit because I feel like because of the economy that we're in, and also because of this drug situation is just not going to stop. We're going that increases property crimes. We haven't had a rise in cases involving personal crimes, thank the Lord. So we're trying to hopefully be able to maintain that, if nothing else.
Okay. Well, I'm Jacob Bembry, and you've been listening to me interview Sheriff Ben Stewart today. I want to thank him for coming in.
Thank you.